All right, Entree Architect community, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, which means it's time for the Entree Architect Context and Clarity Live conversation for Thursday, June 24th, 2021. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. As you're coming in today, say hi. This is our simulcast, our live version. So we know that we are broadcasting to all points around the internet. So say hi when you get here. Let us know where you are. Where in the world are you? If you are on Facebook, you might notice that we've got comments streaming on the right side of the screen, and we see a couple of Facebook users on there. Don't see any names at this point. One of the reasons that you see Facebook user, maybe you pop up as Facebook user, is that because we are broadcasting to a private group on Facebook. Facebook's privacy policies will not allow us to release your name unless you give us permission. So there's a URL in the bottom left of your screen, chat.restream.io/FB, as in Facebook. If you go there, you can give Facebook permission to release your name if you would like. So you show up on the screen with your name and your picture, just like we see on LinkedIn right now and on YouTube. Mark LePage, you see over there on YouTube. Brian in LinkedIn. Oh, there's a name, Shiroshi. I'm sure I butchered that, and I apologize. So if I just completely killed that name, I apologize. Just put in the comments how to properly pronounce your name, and I'll do better next time. Let's see who else has joined us. Benita, welcome back from Atlanta. Glad you're joining us today. And anybody else, as you come in, as you're out there, let us know that you're there. Let us know where there is for you. John Jones, I see you over there in Connecticut from Facebook. Glad you're joining us as well. It is always fun. I say this every single time that we have these context and clarity conversations. Always fun to see where this conversation spreads. And if you have never joined us before, it is not unusual for us to spread all around the world, all the way from Anaheim to Australia. And we do mean that literally, actually. We'll probably have someone in California and someone in Australia. 2 different days at the same time, by the way, but we do spread these conversations around the world, so it's always fun to see where you are. So say hi when you get here. If you're listening to us in the future on the Context and Clarity podcast, welcome. Thanks for listening. Of course, you can listen to this conversation that we're going to have today with our special guest that we will reveal here momentarily, and all of our Thursday afternoon guests anywhere you consume podcast, as well as our daily short form Context and Clarity podcast. It's a recap of yesterday and a preview of today. So all of that is out there, as well as our Clubhouse 30-minute coffee conversations on the Clubhouse app every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. So with that, joining me today, as always, but not usually with this view, it's Katharine. Where are you, Katharine?
Hi, I'm on the vineyard and it's a little loud, so I'm going to mostly be muted. There's birds and barking dogs and screaming people and things.
Screaming people?
Occasionally,
that concerns me a little bit.
Well, we're on the water and it just seems to really quite loud. So.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us from the vineyard. Glad that, number one, you're unplugging a little bit, but obviously plugged in today.
Yeah, I'm not unplugging at all. It's just
Okay.
technologically more difficult.
Okay.
But there is a nice view.
Yeah, nice change of scenery for you. Excellent. Well, I see Rod's coming in. John Jones, that must be Tim from hazy San Francisco. Let's see. One Facebook user says it's weird. I'm logged into Restream, but it's not showing. I don't have an answer for that. Not exactly sure what's going on there. Let's see. We'll see if we can figure anything out. And okay, here's the correct pronunciation. Shriyoshi. Okay, Shriyoshi. I'm going to try to remember that. Thank you for that. Thank you for that correction. I do like to try to get people's names right. Well, we have a special guest with us, as we do every Thursday afternoon. I'm looking forward to this. We've been talking all week about some pretty tactical marketing topics. And the reason that we've been covering those topics is because of our special guest. The way that we design our show or the theme for our week is around the special guest that we have every Thursday. So we understand who that guest is, what we'll talk about with that guest, and we line up an entire week's worth of topics that hopefully will relate to our conversation on Thursday. And so I think we've done a good job of lining those up this week. We've been talking about marketing plans. We've been talking about lead generation or finding leads. We've been talking about tracking your marketing activities. So I think it's only appropriate that I announce today that our guest today is a mentor, a strategist, and a trainer. She's an AEC marketer, an expert in proposals and systems and CRMs. Do you know what a CRM is? But if you know what a CRM is, type that into the comments section. What does CRM mean? Well, our guest today is an expert in that. We'll figure out if how many of us know what that is. She's also the host of the Marketers Take Flight podcast, which is a good podcast. If you want to know about marketing in the AEC world, you should check out the Marketers Take Flight podcast, especially if you are a marketing coordinator or someone that's just sort of finding your way on the marketing side of architecture and engineering. You should check out the Marketers Take Flight podcast. With that, Lindsay Diven, welcome to Context and Clarity Live.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here. I'm like so excited that I'm like kind of the grand finale, I think, of your week, right?
I guess so. I guess you could totally look at it that way. Yeah, we like I said, we do look at who our guests will be and what we know the conversation topics will be. And we try to kind of build up to that conversation. And we've been talking about actually for I guess about 5 weeks now. We've been covering different marketing topics, some of them fairly philosophical, some of them very high level, 30,000 foot view. We had Mark Schaefer last week, who's a marketing thought leader and author. But of course, that conversation is going to be at a pretty 30,000 foot view, like I said. And so in a way, it was very refreshing to get down to a pretty boots on the ground, tactical view of these marketing topics, like I said, that we've talked about this week. But understanding that our audience may be slightly different today because we are simulcast to all the places, to LinkedIn as well as Facebook and YouTube and Twitch. For our huge following there on Twitch.
I don't even know what that is.
No worries.
I didn't either, Lindsay.
I think we've got 4 followers now on Twitch, so that's actually exponentially higher than where we started.
A lot more than we had.
Yeah,
you quadrupled.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, that's growth, boys and girls. But most of the people in our audience are small firm architects, small business owners. I know that some joining us from LinkedIn are probably some of your friends, people that know you, others from the S&PS world. So hi, S&PS friends out there and marketers out there, but an awful lot of small business owners who are challenged because they're wearing a whole lot of hats, right? They're wearing the 17 hats of the entrepreneur. Marketing is something they have to worry about, as well as finances, as well as doing the work, as well as everything else. When we're talking about many in professional services, architects, certainly, engineers, attorneys, doctors, they went to school. They were trained for something completely different. And we were talking offline about the fact that, and I mentioned this on Clubhouse this morning, I am asked sometimes to speak to pro practice classes at architecture schools about marketing or about branding. And I know that I am that component of the semester for them. So I know that they get like 45 minutes of marketing. So maybe the place to start this conversation is, what is marketing?
Yeah. What is it? And when you told me that, I was like, I knew architects and engineers didn't get that much training or, in marketing or sales, but only 45 minutes. I was shocked. So I love that we're starting with this question. What is marketing? And I can give you like a textbook definition, but really what it is it's promoting your product or your services. So for us, it's our services to many. So it's promoting your services in a marketplace to many. And that's different than sales, because sales is typically, or we, in the industry, we call it business development or sales, I've heard it called project development. That's really more on an individual scale, right? You're talking to somebody about an upcoming project. You might produce a proposal for them. You might have an interview with them. That's sales. That's one to one or one to few. Marketing is one to many. And part of that is I was harking back to my old textbook days. I studied marketing at the University of Florida. So go Gators. I have to plug that every time I'm like obligated. And, back then they taught us product marketing, and mostly consumer product marketing. And there was 4 P's: product, place, price, and promotion. And so I've learned over the years how to equate those to our services industry, and our design industry. And really our product is our service. So that's your design, that's your ideas, your solutions, and everybody hopefully has something that differentiates them from other designers, other architects, whether it's a niche that you design in, like 5-star restaurants versus, K through 12 elementary schools, the different niches.
Sure. Yep.
So that's your product, really. And then the place, that's really, the markets that you serve. So unlike a store, which that's their place, you go into an Apple store, that experience is a lot different than Walmart, and so it's kind of like, the markets that you serve and how you serve them. That's kind of like the place. Price is price, right? We all get that. And then promotion. And so a lot of people think that's the promotion part is really what marketing is. And it is part of it. It's one of the 4 parts of it. And promotion is where a lot of people really think that all of it is. And I see somebody asked, what is PR and how is it relevant to architects? PR fits in that promotional piece of marketing. It's one way to promote your practice. And PR is public relations. It's really the non-paid exposure you get. The placement in magazines, the placement, the mentions in a local newspaper, coming on podcasts like this. Some people could say that this is like PR. I'm getting a lot of free exposure to my podcast and to me and my brand by coming on like this. So some people could say that this could be a little bit of PR as well. So PR is part of the promotion piece, but a lot of people think that an advertising falls in that promotion piece. So a lot of people, when they think of marketing, they go straight to that promotion and they think that's all it is. But it's really all the 4 things working together. I know earlier this week, you guys talked about marketing plans. And so some of that, your marketing plan covers a lot of these things. And a lot of it comes in your sales strategy, or your strategic plan really feeds into your marketing plan as well.
Yeah. That helps understand what it is. And, as I'm listening, it's, also understanding that marketing in the AEC world is a little bit different from some other areas. And it always, I always wonder, if I'm at an SMPS event or something like that, and there are a bunch of young marketing coordinators in the room that.
SMPS, what does that mean, Jeff?
Oh, yes.
What is SMPS, Lindsay?
Simple marketing something.
It's
No,
definitely not simple.
No, it's
ratified.
It's a organization, and it stands for the Society for Marketing Professional Services.
Okay, I was totally wrong.
Yeah. But I was wanting to see you go and see what else you could come up with the abbreviations.
That was a good question, though. That was a very good question.
Yes, thank you for calling us out on the jargon.
Exactly.
That's why I'm here. I don't know anything about any of this, so I'm just representing the the architects in the room.
Yeah, it always when I'm at an event like that, and I see the young marketing coordinators that are probably a year or two out of school.
Mhm.
I go, I'll bet when you were in school, this is not what you thought it was going to be like. So much of marketing in the AEC world is fulfillment. The response to
Mhm. Mhm.
the RFPs and the RFQs. Although there are an awful lot of people in our audience today that don't necessarily pursue work in that way.
Right. Right.
Um, but I always wonder, well, what are they thinking at this point? It's like, what did I get myself into?
Yes.
It's just a
Yes.
little
Yeah.
different. And,
Well,
and
and I also argue, not to go off on a tangent, that um, at the firms that do have marketing coordinators that are responding to proposals, they're not. That's really more on the sales side. That's like
true.
sales
Yep,
fulfillment.
Mm.
that's true.
And so that's why also I think it gets a little confusing in our industry because we call everything marketing,
Yes,
whether it's like
blurring all the
sales.
lines.
Yes, yeah. So I'm a big proponent of, clearly, when I go and start working with a new firm, I clearly make sure that everybody understands the difference between marketing and sales because it is different activities,
Right.
it's different expectations, and different goals.
Mhm.
Sales, you're closing the deal. I mean,
Right.
that's the ultimate goal. Whereas marketing, you want your brand or your agency or your firm to be known for your product, your service in those particular markets. So in and there's some marketing that's like lead gen, to get people
Right.
to like, fill out forms on your website and raise their hand and say, "Hey, I'm interested in talking to you." But really marketing is really that promoting
Yeah.
outward.
Right.
Whereas sales is like closing the deal.
Mhm. And you mentioned lead gen and different, kind of getting into um, different aspects and different goals.
Mhm.
So if you were, like Catherine said, um, representing the architect side, the small architect side, if you were if you maybe were consulting
Mhm.
with a small firm, there's an awful lot of sole practitioners probably in the audience today. What would you say? Well, let me back that up. Let's just kind of be methodical about it.
Okay.
What's the first thing that a sole practitioner who's been in business for a year or 10 years, it doesn't matter, um, but they may look around, they may have shown up to Context and Clarity on Monday, and I asked about the marketing plan, and they went, "Ooh, yeah, I don't have one of those." So, what's the first thing that somebody needs to do?
So I think the first thing too is what I would do is get really clear about who your ideal clients are and your ideal projects. Because because you don't know what to promote or talk about until you know who you're going to be talking to and who you want to be talking to. And so that would be the first step is have some conversations around, in other industries, they call it your ideal audience. But for us, it's like, who do we want to work with? Maybe we're not working with them today. Maybe you are, or, or you want to work with more clients like that. What do they look like? What market are they in? What location are they in? What, find out as much information about that. We call them targeted clients. Um, and that would be the first thing I would do because that will make the rest of the steps so much easier. And where I see a lot of firms making mistakes is they just say, well, everyone, we want every project, we want every client. It's really hard to craft any type of messaging or even try to do any type of PR campaign or advertising campaign or if you don't if to everybody. So I know some firms really niche down. Some firms keep it a little bit more broad. I will say it's harder the more broad you go and say, I'm in Florida. I want to do every project in Florida. Well, no, like that's, not gonna, it's gonna look a lot different. If I want to say, well, I just want to do golf course clubhouses versus I don't know, quick service fast food restaurants.
Yeah.
That's a very different messaging and very different clientele that have different needs, and respond to different messaging and promotions. And they read different magazines, they read different, they have in different industry associations, they have different golf tournaments they go to. I don't know.
Yeah.
So once you get that targeted audience, and it could be people, like I said, you're working with right now, but it could be like who you aspire to work with
Right.
in the future. But getting really crystal clear on that. And I mean, we write down like another industry jargon term are personas.
Mhm.
And we write a story. We write what they are, what kind of company they are, or if they're individuals, or their likes, dislikes, desires, goals. We make a little story out of it. And that becomes much easier then when we talk about the next steps to craft all the next steps once you get clear on that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I'm gonna read a comment because I don't think this will actually fit on the screen. Brian says, "I'd like to think of marketing as the process of promoting your firm with the goal of starting conversations with prospects." There you go. Oh, it does fit on the screen. Thanks,
Yeah,
Catherine.
that's great. That's a great way to think about it.
Now, to be clear, Brian's a marketer, so he's sort of got a leg up on some of these answers,
Yeah.
and yeah, so that was almost a little bit cheating, but he's right. Now, I also see that Brian, of course, answered the CRM question correctly, as he should have. I'll give you half a point for that, Brian. But Benita says customer relationship management tool helps tracking and managing leads. So Benita, we're sending a crocheted bathtub to you for that correct answer. That's excellent. That's a good job. It's a good job. She got the CRM question right. And Christian mentions jargon monoxide poisoning, which we talk about every once in a while. That's
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
That's good. So we've identified, we've thought about who our ideal client is, and for everybody out there that's a context and clarity regular, I promise I did not pay Lindsay to start right out of the gate with talking about ideal clients.
It's true. He didn't say anything about that before.
So we know who they are. We're small firm, one person firm,
Mhm.
maybe. What do we do next?
Yeah. So from the marketing, I would say that you have your targeted audience. You if you need to research like where they are, so what are they typically on LinkedIn or on Instagram? What publications are they reading? So you want to do some research, reach out to a couple of them, talk to them. This is what we call market research. It's a fancy term, but it's really just, getting more insight to kind of validate your original assumptions or change, some of the information you originally thought. And then, so you do that quote unquote market research, which scares a lot of people, but it's really a fancy term. And for this purpose, it's really just talking to them, and having some conversations with them. And sometimes clients or potential clients are a little bit more open when you're just like, I just want to get to know you. I'm not looking for any work or anything. And if you have current clients that meet that targeted client, those are the perfect people because you already have a relationship with them. And you can ask them some questions, and then that'll help you, and you can follow kind of some of the stuff that they follow or they read, so you can kind of see what those people are putting out. So if there's a particular magazine or if there's a particular blog that they read or a podcast they listen to, you can kind of listen to that as well. So you can kind of just see what kind of information they're digesting and what resonates with them. And then and the messaging with that. But this doesn't have to be a big effort. I mean, you could spend a couple weeks, so it's not, the thing about marketing is it's always changing and always fluid. So it's not like you're going to get it wrong and then stop doing it. Like, you're going to get it wrong and then you're going to adjust. You're going to get it wrong and then you're going to adjust, or you're going to get it right and you're going to be like, ooh, that really worked. And you're going to keep doing it. And when I say really worked, you're going to get a lot of response back. You're going to get a lot of engagement back. And so the market research, a little bit. And like I said, it sounds like scary, but it's not. I promise. I've done it. Some people call it like client perception. Some people call it market research. I just say, go talk to people and ask them what they read, what they listen to, and where they hang out.
Yeah. A minute ago, you called it getting to know your clients or something like that. And I think that's the perfect view, right? You know, maybe the place to start is think about your favorite clients over the past 2 or 3 years and go have a conversation with them. You know, what are you reading? Where are you going? What are you supporting? I love that.
So Chris wants to know if he should be asking that and tracking that with each new client, or would be each client type? What social media sites, what publications do you read? What podcasts do you listen to? So I would guess it would be like each type.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, you don't want to have it like a checklist where you're interviewing them like on the first call, but I think you can bring it up casually in conversations, just with like what Jeff was just saying, is just like it's part of getting to know and building that relationship. So I wouldn't have it as like a client intake form, like you're at the doctor and you're like, okay, and what social media ones, and check it off. I think it needs to be casual. It needs to be like sincere. And, you know, the easiest thing you can do too, and I don't see enough people doing this, is when you start working with somebody, connect with them on LinkedIn. That should be your first thing. You, not your firm, but you personally connecting with that person. And that's also too, you can kind of see what they're posting and following and sharing. You know, I say LinkedIn because that's typically a little bit less invasive. You know, for a professional, I've had some clients connect with me on Facebook, and some people are a little bit more guarded on Facebook. And my Instagram is public, so you know, people can follow me, but LinkedIn tends to be a little bit more professionally acceptable to make that connection. So when you do get a new client, you know, hopefully you're having some meetings or phone calls with them just to kind of kick off the project or understanding of the project, so you can intertwine some of those questions in there and just your normal conversations, and then connect with them on LinkedIn.
Can I ask a question about LinkedIn? Is it creepy to hook or ask them to, I don't know what you do on LinkedIn, if it's your prospective client, if it's just someone that you've met with and they haven't accepted your proposal yet, let's say, is that creepy and kind of stalkerish?
No, I do that.
I mean, they're going to know you're looking anyway, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, if you've had a conversation with them, or you've communicated back and forth, and you say, hey, you know, you obviously send a little note and say, it was great talking to you last week about this potential project. I hope we can connect here as well, or we can continue the connection here. I always say, add a little note to give it context, so it's not just appears like spam. Because I know we probably all get those connection requests that we are like, who is this person, or where did I meet them?
It's the Legion people.
So I think that also is part, and this is an ongoing thing. So because we meet people all the time, and we should be connecting with them, and then we can kind of monitor it. And then that way you're kind of, and this isn't like hours on end, right? You hop on LinkedIn a couple times a week, check it for like 10 minutes, see what people are doing, and then get on with your day. I mean, you can spend hours. I don't, you know, we're all busy. But when you're in this market research phase, you might spend a little bit more time looking at stuff, but then you can get on with it.
Yeah. Shrioshi says, clients are people too. And I think that's the perfect comment, right? I think you know, for the context that we're talking about right now, is it creepy to follow someone on Facebook? I don't know. What would a normal person feel like or think like, right? You know, we've got to remember the human side of what we're talking about, even though A lot of modern marketing is online and
Mhm.
digital, et cetera. So that's a great comment.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, so look, clients are people. So if it would creep you out, then don't do it to somebody else.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. And so we're connecting with people, we're getting to know people. Um, like we said, Brian a few minutes ago talked about it. Marketing sort of being the lead up, hopefully, to starting
mhm,
conversations. Um, what happens when we're starting, let's say it this way, we're starting to connect with people on
mhm,
LinkedIn, on Facebook, wherever it is.
mhm,
what what do we do to stay in touch with these people? Because it's
mm.
not going to be, hey, we connected on LinkedIn, are you going to hire me?
Yeah, yeah,
It's not going to be that quick, right? So
right.
what do we do once we're connected with people?
Yeah.
How do we foster these relationships?
So, I think in part of it is continuing to have a reason to talk with them. And so usually it's, you can maybe a couple times be like, "Hey, I just wanted to check in. How are things going?" If you had something to talk about, from a previous meeting or follow up, those are like natural, like course of the relationship. If you don't, or you just kind of met and then connected and don't really have a reason to continue the conversation, then there's a couple ways where I stay in contact with people. And usually it's I have something interesting to share. So either something interesting that I think they would find value from that somebody else created. So like an article or an interesting project or an insight, um, or something, a piece of content I've created.
Mhm.
I believe, and part of the next step, if we want to talk tactics, everybody on here that has a firm needs to have a website, and they need to be doing some kind of publishing on that website. And the medium of that is up to you, whatever you feel comfortable with. Um, but the great thing about architecture, I don't know if we have any engineers on, but you
Probably.
guys do some pretty crazy, awesome work. And every project has like hundreds of stories, like micro stories or micro decisions, or just I mean, I used to work for a civil engineering firm, and that was like super boring. Pipes in the ground. Like, how are we going to talk about that? But when then I started working for an architecture firm, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like so fun to market. Um, and so whatever medium that is, whether if you like to go on video and talk about it, you like to share pictures, you like to write, you like to go on Clubhouse now and just talk about it, like sharing that, and then, putting it up on your website somehow, and then um and then and then that's where the promotion comes in, and then promoting those pieces, and that can be done through, your email marketing, your social media marketing, PR, all those tactical things. Those are the promotion piece. And but I feel like it's easy and hard because you're most architects, they have their heads down, they're doing the work, and so they don't think about, oh well, we had, I'm sketching up these couple of options for this client, and they don't think about, oh well, let me just pause right here and just turn my phone on and talk through the differences between these three options and why I differentiated, this roof line from that roof line and oriented the building this way. That's a 30-second, 1-minute video that you can just throw up on your website and then YouTube and wherever. And it's really selling without selling, because you're just sharing your expertise.
Mhm.
And those are conversation starters.
Yeah.
And so I get very excited because there's so many stories like that. But I get it, because you're busy, you have your head down, you're doing your work and trying to get it done for the client, because we live in a deadline driven world. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think there are lots of strategies like, and the one you just shared is perfect, right? You could turn your whatever phone you have on, flip it to video and do it, and then and and I've shared this before, that I've shared my process before, where I can produce this and this and this and this in like 30 minutes, right? Short video, and push it out to this place and that place. But not everybody is comfortable with that.
Right.
Don't feel like they have the technical skills, knowledge, whatever it is. So if that's a barrier, and it certainly could be for a lot of people, what about the idea of, what do I need to do versus what could I or should I delegate? Maybe it's an intern, maybe it's a consultant. What do you think for a small firm? Is there a sort of a rule of thumb, or rules of engagement that they should keep in mind?
I think the first thing to do is to get into that mindset, because you can outsource all of this, but you are the content, you are the creator of the content. So you have to get into the mindset of, or just remember, oh, hey, I should probably write this down because this could be an interesting tidbit to share. So you have to start getting into that mindset, because a consultant can't really, they can come in after the fact and try to pull it out from you, but like, maybe every Friday, just look back on your week and be like, was there something interesting that happened, or something that what did we do this week? What drawings did we get done this week? Or what planning or charrettes did we have that would be interesting? And just start kind of writing those down, almost like, potential content journal or something like that. Because then you can then give that to a consultant, an intern. I would say intern. I love interns. Hire some college interns, have them follow you around with a camera while you work and document everything. Because I love, and then they can edit it and post, either edit the video or edit the audio or edit the writing and make some graphics and throw it up there. The editing and posting, those are perfect things to outsource or to delegate. But the actual content creation really needs to come from you guys. And so just having that kind of like that, oh, this is interesting, let's talk about this, or this could be interesting, let's talk about that. Just putting those thoughts in your head while you're doing the work, that's the hardest part. And once you do it, it gets easier. It's like, it's just kind of changing your behavior. If you do it over time and you practice, or you just, even set yourself an Outlook reminder, think about something I did this week for, that could be interesting to our targeted audience.
That's an interesting point right there too. Interesting to our targeted audience. So how do you balance, right? I may be working on this project, and I know that thing I just did is a stroke of brilliance. Maybe it's super technical. I figured something out. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe I'm geeking out on some sort of code provision or whatever, but does my targeted audience care? Would be, I think, a question we need to ask. So how do we balance what we care about versus what our target audience, our ideal clients, care about?
Yeah. So I think it's part of the packaging of that. So like your code variants or whatever, your client might not even know that that's an issue, or that could potentially be an issue, because they don't know, because they're not an architect. They're like the owner's rep, or they're the business owner that's hiring you. And so, framing it in that way of, be prepared for this, don't let your project be delayed by this code, violation, or, so I think as long as you then package it in a way that is beneficial to them, that it could be a question they've asked you in the past. That's usually a good first place to start. The questions that your ideal clients ask you over and over again in every meeting, those are like good places to start. And then the questions that they don't ask, but are going to be an issue. or could be an issue because you're the expert and you've done this type of project so many times, that we're going to get hung up on this code because we do every time we do a project in this city, we've got to deal with this code. And so you can do preemptive questions that that they're not going to ask, but that should be asking.
Yeah. One technique I like, if we're trying to come up with content ideas along the lines of what you just said, because the key is relevance, right? If I'm doing this brilliant thing, I've got to ask, how is this relevant to them? It's brilliant in my mind, but is it relevant to them? I love the idea of going into, you mentioned Outlook before, or your whatever your mail service is, Outlook or Gmail or something. Just do a search. How do I, or how do we, or what is, the things that preface the questions that you get, and just do a search. You're going to get a huge list and go through there. And when it comes up more than once, you get the same question twice. That's a content idea right there, because if a couple people have that question, a lot of people have that question.
Yeah. And you can take another big thing I like to do, because especially at small firms, because we don't have a lot of time to generate lots of new content. So what I also recommend is repurposing. And so you can take that one question, let's say, and you can write a blog article and put it on your website. You can record yourself answering the question. And so that's a video. You can come up with a visual representation of that question, whether it's sketches or diagrams or just photos, or a case study of, where you answer that question in a project and you kind of just talk about the project that way. You can make other kind of graphics from that. So you can take, I'm a big fan of taking this content and trying, and then challenging yourself to repurpose it like 3 or 4 different times. And so if you take one piece of content and let's say you try to repurpose it 4 times, well, that's like, you can post that once per month, and that's 4 months of content, and just from one. And so maybe you do like 4 or 5 a year, and then you pretty much have the whole year, and you repurpose those 4 times. That's 16 pieces of content. That's a lot. So I'm a big fan of repurposing because we are busy, and people like to get content in different ways. So some people, like, I love listening to podcasts. So that's the majority of how I consume my content. But my husband, he's a big fan of YouTube. So he just sits there and watches YouTube. And he consumes he's in construction. He consumes his content that way. So you might find, I might listen to your podcast, but then he'll watch it on YouTube.
Right.
Same piece of content.
Yeah. So if you think about, pretty much the sky's the limit, right? We've got YouTube and Instagram and, 16 different ways to post on Instagram, and
Twitch now that I've learned about.
Twitch that now. And so right now on the screen, I see, I happen to know that is a message through Twitch from Kurt, the Urban Collab Architecture. That's Kurt.
Okay.
He says, Lindsay sounds like Jeff with atomizing content. So what you just described, I call atomizing content.
Okay.
Same thing.
Yeah.
But that came through Twitch.
Okay.
There's all kinds of platforms, and next week there will be a new platform. Right. So, and you said earlier, everything continues to change.
Yeah.
So do you have favorite platforms for architects, or are you simply looking for where are my ideal clients and trying to meet them in that place? Do you have a feeling one way or another, hey, architects should be doing this one, and this one, or it goes back to what you said earlier and say, hey, if your clients are only on LinkedIn or only on Facebook, then you should be there.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's part of that market research of your ideal clients. Now they might be on multiple platforms, but where they find their industry information or their professional development information,
Mm.
or, places where they're looking for resources that aren't like personal, like
Mhm.
we probably all go on Facebook to look at our cousins and our nieces and our nephews, but we're not in the right mindset. We might not be in the right mindset to like read a report about a new code for architecture projects. So that goes back to the market research. I'm a big proponent. You would think like LinkedIn would be like I know a lot of architecture firms that are on LinkedIn because architecture is very visual. It's a very, you have a very tangible product at the end. You've beautiful buildings. So it's a very visual medium, but that doesn't mean that your ideal clients are, and your targeted audience are on there. So I do tend to lean, heavily into the market research to find where they're at, and then just start with one channel.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get on all of them, but it's hard to maintain. Like you can go and reserve all your handles on all of them, but it's really hard and time consuming to maintain, and it's really hard to be successful and really drive the growth and the engagement on more than, I would say, one channel at a time. Now, if you get successful at it and you're able to hire some staff or a consultant, then yeah, you can add more. But I usually tell people, let's start with one, get really good at it, really grow that, and then experiment with the next one.
You said something a minute ago that I think is really important. You didn't say it exactly this way, but what popped into my head was you were talking about the code information on Facebook when you're looking at the nieces and nephews, right? So context matters, right? You may, your ideal client may be on Facebook for, the reasons like you said, but that's probably not the context for that they're expecting the code report or whatever it is. So,
Right.
so I think that's a really great comment. We've been talking about this promotion and pushing this out through different platforms. How do you feel about ads, whether it's Google or it's Facebook or it's LinkedIn ads, what Instagram, I guess too.
Yeah.
What about ads? Use them or not?
I have not used them for architecture, for any of the architecture or engineering firms I've worked at. I have seen them used for architecture and engineering firms, but they've really been around not like their services, but like some kind of content marketing piece. So some kind of report or some kind of, there are some larger architecture firms. Oh gosh, goodness, the name is escaping me, where they do like the status of the workplace, or the workplace design report. And so they do these like big primary research reports of a particular industry, and that's what they're using paid ads for, to get people, and that's kind of like their lead magnet, to get people onto the, to download the report, collect their email address, so then they can like market, use email marketing, to do that. And so unless you're going to do something like that, I don't know that it is, or you're very niche, like you're the only person that, or one of a few firms in the country that does ABC.
Right.
But if that's the case, so you could probably do some Google, because, if somebody's searching that, hopefully you'll be the first one ranked anyways in the search result. But I don't really see a lot.
Well, I think the point of the ad is dry, and I'll try to be careful here because obviously we don't want to go too deep in the weeds and make this a long conversation about advertisement or advertising. But I think the point that the ad drives to a piece of content or an event, a webinar, when you're talking about the workplace, it's like, I think that's Gensler, but it may not be.
Yes. I think that's it. I can't believe that name escaped me.
Well, but there are a lot of people, especially a couple of months into the pandemic and the shutdowns. There are a lot of people talking about the future of the workplace. But Gensler was one that came to my mind. But
Yeah.
But I think that's an excellent point, right? If you're going to spend money on ads, where are you driving them to?
Exactly.
And I think, to me, and again, I try not to get too deep in the weeds, but to me, it's like you're not going to drive them to a conversation about hiring me, right?
Yeah.
You're going to drive them to a thought leadership article or a webinar or something that's
and then continue to nurture them
right
after that. So the thing about ads, and really, like, even some of the organic, you have to think about, well, what comes next?
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially if you're collecting an email, like you have them download something and you're collecting an email, you need to have a plan in place to, email them monthly or email them biweekly, to nurture them and move them along that journey to get closer to that conversation of, working with them.
So,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
I'm just wondering, so the plan, like the marketing plan, would be writing this down. Like the actual plan is put out content on Instagram every day. That's it. And then like put out ads, and then that would be another. I just actually need to know what it looks like.
Yeah. So the plan would be, it would start with your targeted audience.
Yeah.
And then it would recap that market research of where we're going to be. And then it would say, well, what we're going to do. So knowing this, our strategy is to get in front of ABC people that are, golf course owners in Florida. I don't know.
Write that down.
Yes. Yeah. And then you say, okay, well, then how are we going to get in front of them? And that's your channels, your promotions, and so that's, a lot of people jump to that end and say, okay, well, we're going to have an Instagram channel and we're going to put out, 3 pictures a week. Well, but what are they going to be and who are you targeting? So you got to do all that upfront work first, targeted audience, where they're at, and then who they are, and then what you're going to say to them, and then how you're going to say it, and then where you're going to say it. And that's the channels. So you see,
and writing it all down is key. Like you actually have to write it down. You can't just think it.
Yeah. And hopefully put a budget to it. Okay. Because it costs money. I mean, even though you might promote it through social media, which is free, it's your time to create it. And it's your, or somebody else's time to create it, or, paying somebody to post it and edit it and monitor it. Another thing about a marketing plan is then some goals. Like what do we want to achieve with this? Do we want it to be, you can have a goal of brand awareness. So what does that look like? Well, maybe we want, our website traffic to increase. Maybe we want to get some placement in some publications, and then, we'll get some brand exposure that way. Or so that's one strategy. Another strategy or objective is lead generation. So we want to start X number of conversations. We want this to start. And so the first time you do this, your goals are going to just be a shot in the dark. Like, but you got to set a goal. I was just talking to somebody yesterday about her marketing budget. And she's like, I have no idea. She's like, we've never tracked it. I don't know. Should it be a percentage of revenue? Should it be, and I gave her my thoughts, and she's like, but I really don't know. I go, just start with a number and then just start tracking it. And that's the same thing with marketing goals. But I'm a big proponent of having goals, because a lot of times people think marketing is just this like fluff of stuff we have to do, but there's no, we can't measure it. And I said, well, put some numbers on it and then you can measure it. Yeah. And those first set of numbers are going to be, like I said, a shot in the dark. You're going to just throw a bullseye somewhere and make up some numbers, but then you can see after you start tracking it, and those metrics, like I said, could be like website visitors, people added to your email list, your own personal LinkedIn connections. It could be, okay, we're going to, choose our channel as LinkedIn. So let's grow our LinkedIn page. What's our engagement on our LinkedIn? All those kind of metrics to how many times we're getting phone calls or emails to set up the meetings. And we're going to start asking people that call or email us, how did you hear about us?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to start tracking that.
Yeah, I think that point that you just made about, people saying you can't track your marketing, or to me, that's a real danger zone, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that has always bothered me is that a lot of firms see marketing as a cost, as a cost center. And one of the reasons is if they're actually tracking everything, if nothing else, they're putting the salary of the marketing person, if that's their setup, they're putting that in overhead, right? So so that's why they see it that way. But if, like you said, if we're attaching numbers to things, if we're assigning numbers to things, and we have goals and we're tracking those goals, then we can change that mindset to marketing being an investment. And it really needs to be an investment. It's that's such a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Looking at marketing as that cost center rather than an investment. And the fact of the matter is, and it's probably even more poignant to the small firm architects, the sole practitioners, et cetera. If you're not marketing, eventually you're not paying your mortgage. Okay.
Right.
So somebody mentioned on Clubhouse this morning, I think it was Christian, was talking about this longtime boss that never did any marketing. It all came through word of mouth, repeats and referrals, which is a big part of most firms. But if that's where you're stopping, right, that is your eventual end. Right? Because people retire, people move to different organizations. The people in your firm that hold those relationships may go somewhere else. If you've got someone that's an employee in your firm that holds the key relationship with your best client, and you say all of our work comes from repeat clients and referrals, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? Because if that person leaves, you might be sunk. So, sorry, I'm getting up on the soapbox, but we've got to, no matter how small the organization is, we've got to at least do a minimal. It doesn't have to be super complicated, right?
No.
Just do the minimum to have some idea of what we're putting into it and what we're getting out of it. And hopefully there's some sort of Pavlovian reward that comes with it, right? Oh, wow. Right. Somebody filled out the form at the bottom of this blog post. Wow. Right. There's a result. That means something came from that hour or whatever I spent writing and publishing that blog post. So, to everybody out there, and this is not just a small firm comment.
No.
There are a lot of large firms towards the beginning of the pandemic that laid off a lot of people that we know in the marketing world. And the reason that happens is because they're looking at it as the cost center. And that becomes, I can go way on that, but that reactionary response is completely counterintuitive. Oh, things are slowing down. Let's stop marketing.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Time out.
Yeah. Anyway. Let's stop promoting our firm out into the marketplace.
Yeah.
Because that'll get us more work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's one problem that's related sort of to one of the problems that a lot of small firm architects have. It's, hey, we're really busy right now.
Right.
Which is great, right? A lot of people are really busy. Oh, I've got to get the work done.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of things get prioritized higher than marketing, and marketing may not be getting done.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that will be reflected at
Yeah.
some point down the road too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I hear that a lot on the we're too busy. We're too busy doing the work. And I said, okay, but marketing is like a machine. You
mhm.
have to feed the machine. It's ongoing. You don't have to feed it every day, but it has to have a regular cadence, a regular feed schedule. And so you can't just stop it for the 3 months you're busy and then expect when you're slowing down, okay, let's start marketing again. And you're gonna have to ramp back up. Like, because marketing is a long game. It is, you're not gonna put a blog post out today and get a call tomorrow. You're gonna put out 12 blog posts over the next year and maybe get a couple of people to fill out some forms. It's the long game. It's putting, it's putting your firm up there, hopefully appealing to your ideal clients, and they're going to use it as a resource. And then you don't know how many, hopefully we'll know. There's certain IP trackers that you can set up on your website to know who's looking at it. But they might look at it 5 or 6 times or read all 12 of your blog posts before they even reach out to you. And so it is like a long game. And knowing that you can't just stop it when you're busy and then pick it back up, like it like starts over completely again when you do that. And so I try to explain that to people. Like, maybe when you're busy, you repurpose some more content, or maybe slow down your frequency a little bit, but don't stop. Maybe you were posting once a week and now you go every other week. And in between just put up a quick photo or something, so it's, you don't want to slow down too much, because then you'll stop and you'll lose your momentum, but you got to be feeding the machine. It needs to be fed. And, when you're busy, that means your revenue's really good. Outsource it, you know, at that point, and say, hey, I need help for the next 3 months. Here's all the content we have. Figure out a repurposing plan. And you can hire a consultant to do that and for that time. So that way you're still just feeding the machine.
Yeah, that's a really great point too. There's two general buckets of resources: the time and the money. When you have more time than money, you probably invest that time.
Yeah.
When you have more money than time, you try to preserve that time and focus on other things, and use the money to outsource it, as you said. This is obviously something we could talk about for about 16 hours.
Days. I could talk about this all day
More,
long.
more than 45 minutes, certainly.
Yeah.
Where could I'm putting you the URL for your I misspelled it. Let me change that. Where can people find out more? You've got a lot of resources on your website, which I think now I have spelled correctly and up on the screen. Marketerstakeflight.com, where they can find your podcast wherever they consume podcasts, but
the same name, Marketers Take Flight.
There you go. Yeah. And that's really home base for everything, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And on my website too, if you search like budgets, marketing plan, there's a marketing plan template. There is a BD template. So if you want to do a separate like sales plan, but there's a marketing plan, there's marketing budgets templates. So if you just go there and search budget or plan, you will find those posts. And all the podcast episodes are on there as well, or you can listen to them on your favorite podcast device, player of choice.
Right. Yeah. And just to reiterate, there are a lot of great resources that Lindsay has on her website. So if you've been listening to this, we walk through some sort of step-by-step and some good overviews of a marketing plan, et cetera. But if you want to get even more actionable, go check that out, marketerstakeflight.com, and check out the resources. I know you've got a course that is probably a little bit more advanced than what we're talking about today, but tell me just real quickly about the course.
Yeah. So the course is, if you respond to RFPs or RFQs from clients, it's all about that managing that proposal process, the responding to RFPs. It's called the Proposal Pro course. And it's really made for people who are either new to the industry or new to proposals. And it's really about, reading those RFPs, figuring out a compliance matrix, scheduling, getting all the parts and pieces of the proposal, writing the proposal, and reviewing it and submitting it. So it's really made for those responses to RFPs. But then on marketerstakeflight.com, there are some other like mini courses. One of them is a business development planning workshop. So that's really around the business development side, so do your sales plan, because we would do a sales plan as well. A lot of those components make up the beginning parts of the marketing plan, your ideal targeted clients, and then ideal projects, and then what you're going to do to close those deals. So there's a mini workshop on that website as well. That's a little bit less proposals and more like sales.
Yeah. Excellent. Great. Thank you for all those resources there. So everyone's assignment is, first of all, go to LinkedIn and connect with Lindsay.
Yes.
Right? We talked about that earlier. Go there, connect with Lindsay, tell her thank you for being on Context and Clarity today. Maybe in the note that you send to her, and then check out Marketers Take Flight podcast and the blog, which you've been, what are you, 7 or 8 years into it now?
I officially launched it in July of 2012. So it was like July 3rd. It was right around July 4th. So it's coming up on 9 years.
Wow. Congratulations. Wow. A week early. Excellent.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So everybody go check out marketerstakeflight.com, connect with Lindsay on LinkedIn, tell her thanks for being here on Context and Clarity. And, for everybody else that's out there, of course, we'll have another Context and Clarity conversation tomorrow afternoon inside the Entree Architect Community Facebook group. Same bat time, same bat channel, 4 p.m. Eastern. Now, tomorrow, we're back to our mini-series on member spotlights. I can't tell you who the surprise member is tomorrow. I'm going to try not to screw up the title and reveal that too early, like I did last time, but we'll have another member spotlight tomorrow. I'll be on Clubhouse tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. It'll be another one of those get to know you. And I think another fun fact episode of that on Clubhouse tomorrow, maybe starting with what school did you go to and why? Mm-hmm. That might be the hook tomorrow morning for getting to know you on Clubhouse. So hope that you can join us in one of these versions of Context and Clarity. Of course, the short form podcast comes out every weekday morning before you get out of bed. So you can consume it just like Marketers Take Flight, wherever you like to consume podcasts. Lindsay, thanks very much. We really appreciate you being here with us.
Yeah, thanks so much. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for answering my stupid questions.
No stupid questions.
You know what? I'm going to write it down, because I think that makes such a big difference. Like writing down the answers to ideal client and all that stuff. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I think that adds some accountability to it as well. So write it down. Write it down on your whiteboard or wherever you want to write it down. Appreciate all of you out there. Thanks for all of your comments that are streaming by here. Thanks for all of your questions. You are the folks that make Context and Clarity a thing. So thank you for being that and making this a thing, because if it weren't for you, we wouldn't have had this conversation with Lindsay here today. So appreciate all of you. Have a great evening. Take care of yourselves. Be well, stay safe. Keep those around you safe and well. Take a little bit of time to breathe this evening. Come back again tomorrow rejuvenated, because we're going to do this again. So have a great evening, everybody. See you soon.